The story describing the 2011 return to Panama was jam-packed filled with fiction. But before I explain to you the fiction, let me give you the facts. The building was built to support around 80 prisoners, but was crammed with roughly 130, with all those above 80 sharing beds and sleeping on the floor. The main reason for the great overpopulation was that half the group had been in holding for almost a full year. More than 100 men sharing 2 toilets, 2 showers, 1 telephone, and 1 nurse whose primary job was to announce that the facility was out of medical supplies. One man was unable to sleep because of a growing skin rash and was not allowed to visit a doctor. One man had a spinal condition limiting the oxygen to his brain, often experiencing frightful hallucinations, and was unable to see a doctor. One man with diabetes, no doctor. One man with epilepsy, no doctor. And chicken and rice for almost every single meal. But the main missing right was that of expediency. For most of the world, a U.S. citizen is deported in about 15 days. I was in holding for 6 weeks. I arrived at the detention center late Friday night, and on the 3rd Monday, the embassy sent a temporary passport to the facility. 2 weeks later, when the passport had expired, I was still sitting in my cell, yelling obscenities at the guards.
Jazz to me is a state of life, being a state of existence. You can't learn it in...
The only ones who were released in less than a month were those who had both money and a lawyer. Over half of the crowd could be classified as refugees. There were about 70 individuals from countries including Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and parts of Africa, all having 10 months or more in captivity. Many were highly qualified professionals, such as scientists, engineers, and middle management, all having fled their own countries to escape extreme levels of poverty, overpopulation, and even genocide. The characters of my story were loosely based on this group of detainees. However, some of the characteristics were taken from the world's many racist stereotypes. Much of this racism is taught to the general public by music, movies, and television. Frequently, these labels are even learned during the Sunday morning cartoons. Speaking of cartoons, have you seen the Simpsons movie? In one scene, the famous fictional family is sitting on a train, and Lisa says something about the government. In front of the family is sitting the conductor of the train. It's a robot. Its eyes open, an antenna rises from the top of its head, and the scene changes to that of a giant call center filled with people. One man rises from his chair, throws his hands up in the air, and announces that someone is actually talking about the government. This scene is included in a video that is featured at the top of my internet collection. The video includes subtitles explaining that the scene is teaching young children subconsciously that if you talk about the government, they are listening. Shortly after discovering this video, I caught a commercial for a full-length cartoon that was, at the time, coming soon to a theater near you. One short scene in the advertisement featured 2 men working for the government. One of the men doing his job says something into the telephone, and the other man makes the comment, "Huh. Well, I didn't know that the government had that kind of power." He then gets hit in the neck with a dart and falls to the floor. Many people laugh when I tell this story. I don't really understand why this is so funny, but what I do understand is that it is teaching children that if you talk about the government, they are not just listening, but they know where you are and they will get you. Speaking of not speaking, if you have seen the movie Fight Club, then I'm sure that you know that the first rule of Fight Club is that you do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule, you do not talk about Fight Club. I forget the third rule. This movie is telling a story of an underground revolution, a secret revolution about which you were to say nothing. In the movie, a group of the working class are terrorizing the rich, a little reality in reverse. The film ends after the group installs explosives and organizes the demolition of the headquarters of several financial giants. In the very last scene, while Edward Norton and Helena Carter are kissing, directly behind the couple there are 2 tall, thin buildings collapsing, 2 twin towers being destroyed. First the left and then the right. The buildings that were destroyed in New York just so happened to have housed the headquarters of several financial giants. About a month after the buildings in New York were demolished, a scandal was revealed. Chief executives of energy and communication monopolies, Enron and WorldCom, had stolen billions of dollars from the corporation's investors. When the company's headquarters were wiped out, so were the computers, the debt records, and most of the evidence of these crimes. Fight Club was released in 1999, a full 2 years before September 11, 2001. But let's go back a little farther than that, back to 1984. The book, 1984, written by George Orwell in 1949, describes, as do many of the author's works, a utopian society of the future. The book begins as a man awakes in his apartment. He walks out into the hallway, and on the wall is a poster with the words, "Big Brother is watching you." He then exits the building, and on every street corner he finds more of the same caption, "Big Brother is watching you." Now, this book is not teaching children that the government is keeping an all-seeing eye. It is describing to adults a future in which the statement is a reality, including such features as the Ministry of Truth and Thought Police. This is very similar to the manner in which the final book of the Bible describes a future in which no one is able to buy or sell as a result of a 3-digit mark implemented by the government. In the final pages of the Orwell novel are a few lines from the Declaration of Independence. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of those ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government. New government. New government. New government. New government.